go. So I've got here Kat Dillon. I'm so excited to have Kat here. Kat is a registered holistic nutritionist and lives in San Diego, right, Kat?
Yep. Uh-huh.
And so I'm really excited to have Kat here because she is going to talk to us about how we get energy from food and foods that give us more energy because, you know, for Wonderful Fine, our theme this month is energy. So, Kat, I always like to ask people, a lot of us that are in this industry came to it because we had some health issues. So, do you have any history with health issues? Like what brought you to this line of work?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll say that I've always been interested in health and nutrition starting from a young age. It was a real strange thing. I guess it had to do with being an only child and trying to discover things to do. But I was always interested in it. And but one day, I think I was in my late teens, I discovered that I had a little bit of eczema. Which is like a dermatitis, very itchy. And I thought it was just maybe the detergent I was using. And so I left it at that and I kept experimenting with different types of detergent. Well, that eczema progressively got worse. And it wasn't just like a spot, but it was started to translocate and just be located all throughout my body. That, interestingly enough, was when I lived in Canada. And I'm in, like you said, I'm in San Diego right now, but I was living in Vancouver in kind of a moist climate. And that moisture didn't help because I was, I had hot, cold weather clothing on and things didn't breathe very well. But truly that was what I thought it was. But then I dug in and investigated even further and I realized, I'm going to stop eating grains. I'm going to stop eating, in particular, wheat. And I was super addicted to wheat. I would eat muffins every day. They were so-called healthy-ish muffins, the ones like they have oatmeal in them and they have raspberries in them. The foundation was healthy, but they were loaded with refined grains and sweeteners. So I started at that and I started feeling better. I started feeling less brain fog. The eczema went down a little bit. Then I thought even further, I'm going to eliminate, and I'm going to tell you, I was a breadaholic. I eliminated wheat from bread. So I thought the muffins were one thing. Let's try the breads and the pastas. So I did that. And it took a good month and a half to 2 months to finally get rid of that. But when I did, everything, all of my inflammation on my skin just went away. And ever since then, and this was years ago, this is probably now coming on to like 10 years, I've been wheat-free. From time to time, I'll eat gluten-free grains like wild rice or brown rice or quinoa, but I don't eat them at every meal. I don't have them in a refined state. And not only does my skin feel better, but my gut feels better and my brain feels better.
Oh yeah.
So that was kind of my introduction. And, that was when I also was learning. I studied at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition after my degree in formal, conventional nutrition at the university level, but I wanted to go further. And that's where I started really investigating the root cause. That's the thing, the name of the game is finding the root cause, because everybody you can have 25 people with eczema and have, many different, you can have 10 different reasons why they have it. Right? For me, that's what it was. For me, it was the gluten, and I'll tell you, the gluten is a very powerful thing. If the more resistant someone is to giving up gluten, I can tell from my clients, the ones that are the most resistant probably have the most to gain when they give it up.
Yeah, I hear you. I see it all the time. It's, what's surprising though is that you said it was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That that was kind of a new thing 10 years ago. I think people are hearing it a lot more now, but what made you even try it?
Well, just my study of holistic medicine and holistic nutrition. Mm-hmm. It's really about, well, first you want to uncover like what are the imbalances in the body, like what we'll probably be talking about a little bit later. But truly, you want to look at diet and also the things that you are really like having on a daily basis, the things that you feel like you can't do without.
Mm-hmm.
Those foods are frequently the ones that you're sensitive to. Sometimes they cause yeast overgrowth, candida, right? That's a good thing gone bad, and we need that. We have that yeast growing in our bodies naturally, but when we have an overgrowth due to too much sugar and carbohydrates or alcohol, that's when there's trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you feel yourself craving things sometimes. You're actually, your body, it's a natural mechanism for your body to just feed itself so it can grow further, that those yeasts can grow and proliferate.
Absolutely. And I really like that you talked about the connection between the gut and the brain, because it is connected. And a lot of people don't think that, when they start forgetting names or, forgetting why they walked into a room, that kind of thing, that it would have anything to do with what they're eating. But so often it is connected.
Yep.
So let's talk about, as I mentioned, we're talking about getting energy, and obviously our food is our fuel, and that's how we get a lot of our energy. So what foods would you recommend as being particularly good at producing energy?
That's a really big question, but I'll say that well, for one, we want to look at, there's a large variety of different foods, right? We are only eating just a few, a very, very short, tiny amount of the foods that we used to eat. Now that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because we just don't get as many of the micronutrients that our bodies need. The other thing is, a lot of people think that, okay, this food that I eat is going to make energy in my body, but it's really deeper than that. It's really about feeding the mitochondria. It's feeding your cellular powerhouses in your cells in your body, those trillions of cells that crank out energy in the form of ATP. And we don't need to get into science, because truthfully, that science is great to explain things, but I like to be more practical. Yeah. So basically, you want to consider, okay, what can we do to feed our mitochondria? Yeah. So there are things that take away from that mitochondrial health, and there are foods that really add to it. The foods that I would say that take away from it are going to be just the foods that you probably think that do. So processed and ultra processed foods and sugar, yeah, right? That drains you, right? It's going to be things like alcohol, right? I'm not a person that is against alcohol. I love a glass of wine here and there, but we want to be careful of that. Caffeine, caffeine is getting a big boost in the media now as being great for your liver and great for detox. And we want to be careful of that because we want to examine the quality of the coffee and also the person that's drinking it. So if the person that's drinking it can't detox from it, meaning that it stays in their system too long, I'm one of those people, then coffee is probably not a great thing for us, especially also when we're adrenally fatigued or we're stressed out. Like right now during the quarantine, people are stressed. This is really not a great time for a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But then there's people that are at home and they're probably like, well, what else do I do? Trying things like green tea that have wonderful flavonoids and really great antioxidants and are really actually good for the brain, quite stimulating still, but not as overpowering as coffee is. And the other thing is coffee also has hundreds and hundreds of chemicals. It's probably the most sprayed commodity crop in the world. So you want to look for definitely organic beans, fair trade if possible. Looking for, asking where your coffee beans come from is a really important thing. We also want to avoid toxins in general, like from our foods, let's say, that are sprayed or chemically altered. you know, a lot of people are looking for GMO free. If you can find organic in our country, and it's probably the same in Canada, if I can remember correctly, but certified organic means that by default, it is GMO free. So, so all those things are really important. And the reason behind the GMO free stuff, it's not only because, okay, that they're messing around with genetic structure of the food. Yeah, that's important, but it's the reason why it's done that way to begin with. It's genetically modified these seeds that they're planting so that it can be resistant to the spraying of the glyphosate in the areas of the plant. So the problem is that it's nature's antibiotic, and we don't want that. Like, we don't want antibiotics in our system when they're not necessary, because they create havoc in our gut microbiome when the same thing happens in the soil. So we're depleting our soils by all the spraying.
It's so sad.
Yeah, it's really, really sad. So we want to feed that mitochondria. I would say the things now to eat for good mitochondrial health are the leafy greens, high sulfur foods, right? High antioxidant sulfur foods. Those are going to be in leafy greens, garlic and onions and leeks and scallions, all those quite pungent things. And then all the sulfur containing vegetables, like the ones that smell bad when you overcook them, right? Broccoli and cauliflower, those are sulfur rich. Yeah. But even kales and the cabbages, those are fantastic. You want to also make sure that you have enough protein. This is a big one that I notice, that especially our aging population does not get enough protein. And we need those amino acids to protect the mitochondria. And women too. Women, sometimes they'll skimp on the protein, or maybe have like a quick shake without enough protein. So you want to have at least a palm size, like just the palm of your hand right here, not the fingers, at every meal. So that's going to be about 5 to 6 ounces of protein. We need that protein also to make neurotransmitters, right? Those brain chemicals. And we need those neurotransmitters for mood stabilization, for focus, really, really important. Other things like fatty fish with really rich in omega-3s, that's going to be really important. Fatty fish are one, grass-fed beef, wild-caught fish, pasture-raised poultry, did I say that? Things like, things that are going to also help to create a really, really solid gut lining. So those would be like collagen in beef broth or in gelatin. And there's lots of things that you can do with that. You can just sip it, or you can make jellies, or great for kids right now that are home all the time for a good snack. You can make tea jello just with gelatin, grass-fed gelatin. A good brand is called Great Lakes. And that is a fun little snack. Other than those, I would say also what's brilliant is seaweed. To have seaweed in your week. I know where you live, you probably have an abundance of wonderful seaweed. There's a great amount of, you could look at online for some good recipes, but in general, of course you want to get the salt out, and then, you can simply dress it with olive oil and rice wine vinegar. And I like to use a lot of shaved onions and maybe avocado and sesame seed and a dash of sesame oil.
Like a salad, making a seaweed.
Yeah. Great stuff. You can wrap things in nori. That's always really good. Another thing that's really important is CoQ10. And CoQ10 is made by our bodies. And we get it when we, it's made with cholesterol. So people that are on statin medications, when they get rid of all that cholesterol, they also get rid of a lot of that CoQ10, which is a defensive barrier that neutralizes free radicals. And free radicals are what create like cellular oxidation and problems within the cell. So that's going to also protect your body and get energy from your cell, eating that, stuff that's rich in CoQ10. Other than that, I would say also one thing that I would remember to eat, and people aren't so excited about eating organ meats, but if you can possibly find a clean source, of something like liver, kidneys, heart. I know people are probably going like, what is she saying? But there's lots of research. I really like this wonderful doctor that her name is Terry Walls, and she has a great book out, and it might be great for the audience to know about. She reversed her MS in like a year from following her protocol, the Walls protocol, which is very similar to what I'm saying right now.
I've got her books.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. But generally, I would say, big picture, eat a lot of color, get as much color in your day as possible, eat enough protein. And definitely, one thing that you want to make sure of is the quality of the types of fats that you're eating. Yeah. That's huge, right? So all the processed foods, they're going to be made with cheap refined oils. Cheap refined oils like vegetable oils, safflower, sunflower, cottonseed, soybean oil, all that. Yes. So when you eat your fats, first of all, the best thing you could possibly do is make most of your fats come from whole food sources, like let's say nuts and seeds, fatty fish, avocados, olives, and then add the oils. Oils are fantastic for flavor, for mouthfeel, and using them as vinaigrettes. But try, if you can, to have the whole source. That way you're getting all the fiber and the phytonutrients and all these nuts and seeds and things like that. You're getting many more amino acids when you have the grass-fed beef and the wild-caught fish and all of that. So you're going to get fat in that. And then the quality of your oils are important. You want to use things like olive oil, avocado oil, walnut oil, macadamia nut oil, even some clarified butter called ghee or grass-fed butter. Those are all brilliant fats. Mm-hmm. And you need a variety. And that's the key. Whatever I'm saying here, it's really, really important to have a variety. Even if I'm saying like, right, eat sunflower seeds. Well, don't just have sunflower seeds. Have pumpkin and sesame. Mm-hmm. For the same reason, you want to vary the fish that you eat, so you don't overload on the certain PCBs and mercuries that you have in one fish. Greens and beans and all of these other things also have their own anti-nutrients, so that sometimes you will not get rid of all of them in the way you prepare them, okay? So you want to make sure that when you have things like greens, you don't eat kale only. Have chard, have collards, have mustard greens, and really, really make sure that you rotate this. Even things like protein powders. Have a different protein powder every so often. Change it up because your body will form sensitivities to those things.
Yeah. I know that people see that, and I've even seen that in myself. Sometimes we're a little challenged here in Newfoundland because, we, especially even now, because, we rely on, shipping to get a lot of our stuff, a lot of our food, and it's, the shelves are looking a little empty right now. So I know it is challenging for people to get that variety. You didn't mention with the oils, coconut oil. Mm-hmm. Was there a reason for that?
Oh, no, I might have missed a mistake. I just, the coconut oil is brilliant. And I also love coconut manna, if you can find that. Oh. Coconut manna is the flesh and the oil kind of combined together. Okay, yeah. So it's like an opaque consistency, and it's brilliant because, first of all, you don't want to cook with it because it has protein in it. But what you can do is melt it down in a double boiler and make really nice treats from it. So I will, from time to time, mix it with, let's say, matcha green tea powder or cacao powder or cacao nibs, and then pour it back and pour it into, let's say, a little candy mold. Okay. And refrigerate it. And it's unbelievable. It's a great snack, no sugar whatsoever. And it fills you up, gives you good energy, and you feel like $1,000,000. Mm.
That's excellent. I'm going to look for that, and maybe, hopefully I can find it locally, but if not, maybe I can order it in. Where you mentioned how important CoQ10 is, and what are some dietary sources of CoQ10?
Yeah, so you're going to get CoQ10 in things like organ meats and other protein sources. those are brilliant forms.
Some protein.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I mean, you're really speaking my language because this is all the same stuff that I say all the time. So it's fantastic. But one thing I always get from people, and I find it hard because for 30 years or more, people were told, don't eat too much fat. It's going to drive up your cholesterol. And it's hard convincing people that they need to eat good fats, but that they need fat. So how do you approach that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Here's the thing, is that the fat that we eat is not the fat that doesn't turn into dietary cholesterol. Our body naturally makes cholesterol. What we want to watch out for is inflammation. So inflammation actually is the issue here, in that it creates problems in the arteries. You're going to find you'll get plaques residing, and cholesterol is actually, it is the end result of this, because when there's arterial plaques, the cholesterol actually comes in as a last resort, as like kind of like as a first aid treatment to smooth out those arterial walls so that blood can run through. Yeah. So the cholesterol is the end result. So, there's lots and lots of other studies now that are saying that people actually, especially women, can actually handle a little bit more cholesterol like when they get a cholesterol reading, that we don't necessarily want to, be afraid of the number that they are told is dangerous. Now, other people will disagree, but that is the latest in research, is that we want to be careful of not having enough cholesterol, and that there's also only a very small minority of the population who's they'll call them hyper absorbers of cholesterol, and those people need to be careful of maybe eating too much meat and too much butter and too much, but still, it's not as if that they want to completely eliminate it either, because there are so many vitamins and minerals in those items. It's a very small minority, and you can also, instead of just like testing for just your cholesterol, it's really much more useful to test your inflammatory markers. Yeah. Right. And also go to town on testing things like if let's say you have familial hypercholesterolemia, check for things like lipoprotein A, check for the ApoE4 gene, like to get some genetic testing done. That will tell you a little bit more. But things like homocysteine, and that's a marker of inflammation. Also paying more closer attention to not just your glucose, but your HbA1c levels, which are a marker of like an average of 3 months of blood sugar. That's much more important. Like these are really, crucial, and a lot of doctors aren't measuring them unless you pretty much beg them. Just tell them that you have family members that are, have issues, and then they'll be more apt to help you get those done.
I'm not even sure around here how many of those you can even get done. Like you may not even be able to get them tested here. Yeah. I know for me though, the C-reactive protein, the high sensitivity C-reactive protein, is the marker of inflammation that I get tested, and that's sort of the number one thing I look at. And that's my marker. I know where I am, but based on how that's changing.
Yeah. So and other good things that you may want to, people are talking about energy. It's not all about food, right? I mean, food's really important, but so is sleep, right? Yeah. The sleep and having fun in your life, especially right now, to try and get that shut eye and watch some comedy or do some funny stuff. The other thing is making sure that you're not anemic, or that you don't have any underlying thyroid issues. Those are really, really important. And then also checking your cortisol levels. That's a big one. Lastly, I will mention, your blood sugar is huge in this. Chronic fluctuations in insulin and glucose can really make you feel crappy.
And that's where, staying away from the sugars and the grains and, eating lots of vegetables and the proteins and, the fats, that's going to keep it more.
Yeah. And also really just making sure that you get to bed and have that bare minimum of a 12-hour fast between your next meals. So between dinner and breakfast the next day is huge. You got to have that space. Great to extend that even further if you possibly can. Sometimes doing a 14 to 16 hour on the weekends. We're always on a weekend now, but that really will help clear out insulin and glucose and give your body and your brain a really nice regeneration.
Mm-hmm. And give your immune system a break as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I practice intermittent fasting myself. I find it really good. But it's hard. People can't just jump into it because if they're eating, a lot of carbs and a lot of sugars, then it's going to be very difficult to try to do that.
You said it. And that's a mistake I think that people make, is that they will just, they'll have a client and they'll just tell them, or a patient, and they'll say, hey, try this. But the body doesn't want that. It's just a stressor. It's like you have to get your body into fat burning mode first.
Yeah.
First things first. And then worry about the other stuff.
Yeah. It's difficult for people to make this transition, but actually that's one of the great things about having a group, is that more people are doing it together, and then it doesn't seem as strange. And actually this period of time right now is a great time to make changes because there's no social pressure to eat a different kind of way. There's no restaurants, you're not going out to restaurants, so it's a really good time to make some changes if people want to do it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned geography and your environment, really. Vitamin D, even in California, you're talking about I'm talking about Palm Springs, here in San Diego, people are still deficient in vitamin D, and vitamin D we need for energy and mood. We've got to have that D. So get your Ds tested. I think in Canada, the units are like in the hundreds that you want. I can't remember if I think it's milligrams. But here it's nanograms. I can't remember which, but anyway, you want to have, in America, we want to have at least our average to be about 50 to 60.
Mm-hmm. It's not, in Newfoundland, it's not even tested. You can't get it tested here.
Go figure. That's where
I think they just know you're deficient. Just
right.
Go with that.
Right.
But
I love that sublingual vitamin D.
Yeah.
It's great. It really, really helps.
Yeah. So you take A with it as well, of course.
Yeah. A and D.
Yeah. Well, Kat, this has been really interesting. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I love that you really pull all of that here and bring it in here, and all the knowledge of your, the testing and stuff as well. So that's fantastic. I really appreciate you coming in here and talking to us. So where can, tell us a little bit about what you've got coming up. I know you said starting the 27th of April, you've got a summit going on.
Yeah, it's great. And I think it's really useful right now because we want to think about connection, right? Not only, I love speaking in metaphors, right? But we want more connection, but we also want to realize that everything that we do affects everything else on our planet, with each other, but also throughout our physiology, right? And our spirituality. Everything goes together in one big package. Yeah. So I put together this summit of 22 speakers. It's called the Brain, Gut, Heart Connection. And it'll be every day one new speaker, and they'll be about 30 to 40 minutes long. And you can access that at innerwisdomeating.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, and is that the best place for people to find you as well?
Yeah, they can find me at catdillon.com.
Okay.
CATDILLON.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Kat. This has been fabulous.
It was lots of fun.
Yeah, okay. Well, good luck with your summit. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.